I'm joined on Skype by Capital Network's Scott Finlay this morning. Scott, nice to see you.
Good morning.
Just a reminder, for Scott's full report, click on the eye in the top right-hand corner of your screen. Scott, Apollo Minerals, an early-stage explorer, their flagship project in France. Tell us a bit more.
Yes, very exciting project. The Apollo Minerals managed to get their hands on this project mid-last year and been working on it for about a year now. The one in southern France is one of two projects, actually, and the French project is focused on a tungsten mine. This was one of the oldest and richest tungsten mines in France, and it produced tungsten for about 15 years through the 70s and 80s. It was closed down in the mid-80s when commodity prices were much lower. So the asset was assembled last year. They've spent about a year on this project, and the interesting thing about it's the highest grade tungsten mine it was at the time in the world. And when we get into the actual details of the potential there, the grades are still there, and the interesting thing is there's still unmined ore still in situ. So the company are looking to reopen the mine, and this is their sort of step one of three sort of major strategies they have to develop the assets in that part of the world. The second thing was that I mentioned there was another asset, and this is on the Spanish side of the border, so we're talking northern Spain, but they're only about 10 kilometres apart. The Spanish asset is very, very similar. It has all the geological aspects of the French project, and yet this one has never been developed. So what we're looking at here is an earlier stage project again, but another duplicate perhaps. So we could be doubling up on the assets that the company has to begin with. So together, both of these things are two tungsten assets which over the next few years may well develop into the next sort of probably France's first tungsten mine.
You talk about the big focus there on tungsten, but of course some decent gold potential as well.
Well, actually, gold is in my view, probably even more exciting. This area, as I mentioned, was a tungsten producing area for a long time. It wasn't until the late or mid-80s that they actually discovered there was gold there, but by that stage it was too late to develop the mine. So therefore, all that time they were mining, there was a lot of gold there. They just didn't know it at the time. So what's ended up happening is the company have gone back in and had a look at where they were previously mining, and they've discovered that there's high-grade gold throughout the old mine. There's also high-grade gold in the tailings dam. This is the waste product that was mined at the time. And during the sort of exploration phase earlier this year and late last year, they also came across more gold in these cross-cutting structures that go across the granite there. So what this means is potentially this area could become a more important gold discovery than it is a tungsten discovery. The gold may take a little longer to develop, but in my opinion anyway, it's a good starter for the tungsten and then follow up with the gold. So something that's interesting from an investment point of view.
What is the big focus for them this year? What are they looking to achieve here?
Well, I think you'll find that they've just recently raised capital, and most of that will be put into drilling. So exploring, developing up their theory as to where the gold is. So from what I can gather and reading the reports they've put out so far, it looks like they've got a good handle on where the gold should be. Now they just have to get out there and actually make it happen. The other thing that I think you should also be aware of, this is not the first time this management team have been in this situation. They were very successful about 10 years ago with a uranium project in Africa. That was sold for $1 billion. Very similar aspects where they came in very early stage, decided on a target and drilled it up, and were able to find a buyer at the top of the market. They did the same thing with a gold project in West Africa a few years later, and they sold that one for $570 million. So the management team have a track record of developing early stage assets, bringing them up into that stage where it's attractive to be taken out, and they've done this on a number of occasions. And with the sort of metrics we're looking at here, you can sort of see where they're looking at. They're not looking at a small tungsten mine, they're looking at something much, much bigger.
And of course the management team, they've got quite a a sizable stake in the company too.
Yes, at the moment, again, because it was refinanced and restructured late last year, around May, I think it was. They have a majority stake. I think it's just over 20%, and they were very successful in bringing in some good institutional money from the UK. One of their plans is to investigate a listing, because as I said, they're listed here in Australia, but because of the asset being in France and Spain, they're looking at a European listing soon too.
You talk of that recent financing. Of course, we had the likes of BlackRock and Old Mutual take part. Some pretty smart money there. Some heavyweight support for the company, it seems.
Yes, and that gets back to the track record of management. When you're walking into an early stage project, it's always good to see that there's certain people in the market that are going to back you when you've had success before, and it looks like that's what's happening again now.
Scott, really good to get your thoughts. Thanks very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.
And just a reminder, for Scott's full report, click on the eye in the top right-hand corner of your screen.